I'm William Ho. I'm an artist. If you had asked me the question, what do you do before the coronavirus pandemic, I wouldn't have said that. William Ho, the artist. I'm still getting used to it. The reaction and skeptical looks you get don't help. But you paint full-time, how do you support yourself? If I say designer, I don't get any speculations about my poverty level. During this pandemic, it seemed like the world was falling apart and death was hovering over us like a hungry vulture. Everyone reacted in different ways. It seemed to bring out the best and the worst in us. I looked inward and reflected on my life. Would I have any regrets if I had a month or a week left to live? I had these unfulfilled dreams of exploring the world and expressing myself through my art and dance. Since traveling was too risky, I focused on my dreams of becoming an artist. I was a user experience designer for 10 years, but I wasn't really happy designing apps and websites anymore. I couldn't see myself in a 9-to-5 job on a computer all day to build another person's dream, even if it was a stable job and a good paycheck. I had the thought that made the decision easier for me. What if Michelangelo decided to build an app instead of painting the Sistine Chapel? Losing any artist's body of work would be a tragedy. Something had changed inside me. I had to follow the way of the artist. Using the book Designing Your Life as a guide, I mapped out different 5-year plans for my life. I realized I wanted to spend my days creating art, dancing, and telling stories through film. I started sharing my dream life with my friends. Each day I made small steps towards my dreams. December 2020, as the world was bracing for a wave of the pandemic, I rented an art studio at Saxonville Mills, Framingham. I gave myself the goal of creating daily. I rediscovered the joys of painting and exploring my own creativity. Squeezing a tube of paint, mixing a color with a palette knife, the feel of the brush against the canvas were simple pleasures I had forgotten. My daily routine was I would drive to the mills, get a cup of coffee, say hi to other artists, turn on some music, and get lost in my own creativity. Having this studio was a dream, and it was my sanctuary away from everything that was happening in the world. One day on Instagram, I saw a post that changed everything. It was a post from actor Daniel Wu showing a disturbing scene. An elderly Asian man being violently shoved to the ground by a hooded perpetrator. I quickly scrolled past it and was dismissive of it. A Thai man, Visho, was killed by the senseless assault. I started seeing more posts about attacks on Asians in the next few weeks on social media, but not on mainstream news. These random acts of violence and hatred didn't seem so random anymore. Racist and xenophobic acts were happening daily. An Asian family was attacked by a teenager, including stabbing of a 2-year-old child. Often elderly Asians and Asian women walking alone were targeted. To my knowledge, none of these assaults based on race happened in Massachusetts, but these horrible acts reverberated in my mind. Hearing these stories, my mom feared walking alone by herself in Boston. An Asian American friend living near San Francisco contemplated buying his first gun to defend his family. The fear of these acts instilled on Asian families was its own form of punishment. I've mostly stayed away from any type of social activism, especially posting political posts on social media. I didn't trust that I could argue something so eloquently that I could change anyone's mind. There were still injustices all around the world, but I had lost my idealism and believed I could not make much of a difference. I thought it was best to stay on the sidelines and continue on with my life. After reconnecting with my artistic side, I remembered the power of art. How a painting like Guernica, painted by Picasso in 1937, still to this day reminds the viewers of the horrors of war. How food documentaries set me on a path towards being vegetarian. How a dance performance could truly move me. How much art, film, dance, writing, music, theater, and countless other creative endeavors have shaped my world. So what could I do? What could I create to have the most impact at this time when the world seems so divided and so polarized? What could I do to help us heal? The idea of a documentary film came to me. Sure, I had never made a documentary film before, but I believed in my ability as an artist to adapt to any medium. I just needed a team. I first thought of Eddie Vo, who ran his own digital agency. Even after the first time I met him, I knew I would enjoy teaming up with him. He had the equipment and the technical expertise. I pitched him the idea about a short documentary film. It focused on the growing xenophobia and racism towards Asians because of COVID-19's origins. Eddie was on board, but he wanted to work on something broader for the BIPOC community, including Black, Latinx, Native Americans, and Asians. The pandemic was affecting the BIPOC community disproportionately for different reasons. Black, Latinx, Native Americans were experiencing a much higher mortality rate and unemployment compared to other populations. For Asians, we were experiencing xenophobia and racism because of COVID-19. So what is BIPOC? It stands for Black, Indigenous, People of Color. Instead of the term people of color or minority, it gives more nuance and distinction for the Black and Indigenous experience. It includes Black, Native Americans, Latinx, Asian, and other communities. Each community was facing different struggles due to coronavirus. By representing a diverse group of artists and dancers, we could create art that shared our unique perspectives. I want to start a dialogue using our art as a focal point. On Instagram, I message artists, dancers, creatives based in Massachusetts. Dance choreographer Tina Cavicchio, artist, muralist Mercavelli, and dance teacher painter Andres Gilraldo. They were excited to join the project and create new works of art around the pandemic. We made a plan to meet at the art studios in Saxonville Mills, Framingham over the course of 3 days. For 3 days, we would create, collaborate, and share our creations. This is what unfolded. This spot, it's called Graffiti Alley, is that?
I'd say around like 2000 or so. The guy that owns this place up here, brick and mortar, and then on the corner was Central Kitchen. This guy Gary, he's a really cool guy, man. He's like a pillar in the community. And then, you know, he gave us a green light to like do a big mural in the alley there, and then from there it just kind of took off, and now they just did their 10-year anniversary. That was maybe like 2 years ago. And it's been solid since. Like, Boston is not really anywhere else, like in the city, where you can just go and like practice on stuff or just paint and not have like the cops chase you around. So it's a pretty cool place, man. Like, the turnaround's like really heavy. Like, you might paint something and it's gone in like 20 minutes. But you also, like, I've had people hit me up from like Europe, just from photos, or people in town. Like, it's a high traffic area, you know, like.
How long did it take to develop your like signature style?
I'd say, I don't know, probably a good part of 20 years. You know, just like I always liked cartoons and like illustration and stuff. So I had like a start on kind of characters and stuff I wanted to do, and then like getting used to like using the paint as a medium, like spray paint, is like, you know, probably 5-6 years before you're really comfortable in itself.
There was a graffiti artist who was like, I think he was murdered by police.
Yeah, I know. I forget his name, but I know what you're talking about. But a couple of years ago, there was one, like, you know, Art Basel every year is like a big graffiti thing. And like people come from all over the world for this 1 week in Miami, like get busy, and like it's pretty much, hey, what up, man? It's pretty much like open, you know, like the cops usually don't bother you and stuff. But this guy, this is maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, this guy was out painting and was like, he was painting a wall without permission. I'm not sure if he was like outside like the regular area or whatever, but like the police saw him, and then like he got spooked and he ran, and they chased him, and they ended up like pinning him to a wall with their car or something and like killed him. Same thing, you know what I'm saying? Like, he wasn't doing anything, he didn't have any weapons on him. But here in Boston, it's really like crazy. Like, you don't have much of an outlet. Like, the galleries don't really mess with people. Like, getting the murals like through the city or whatever is like a lot of red tape and like months of like permits and all this stuff. With like other cities, you just go and like show the owner a sketch and you're painting in an hour, you know. But there's a lot of stigma that I think is still not really like lifted, just in like the whole graffiti scene. And then I don't know, with the more street art and stuff, hopefully it gets a little more safer and more accepted to paint.
Merc, thanks for showing me your graffiti alley, and I'll see you at the studio.
Yeah, no doubt, man. It was a pleasure hanging out with you guys. You got to see a couple of like my buddies and where I grew up, where I like learned my chops, and looking forward to getting in the studio and painting with you guys.
Andres, how's it going?
What's up, Will? Doing good, man. Welcome
This place is beautiful.
to my studio, Santiago Pro Dance Studio.
It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Thank you.
It's like a combination dance studio and art gallery.
Yes, yes, and that's kind of like the connection of what I love to do, you know, which is dancing, and of course, you know, my artwork, which I have it here just kind of up for just because I was like, oh, I need some decoration. Oh wait, I paint. And then that's kind of like I have some paintings, and some of these have been here since I started the studio, as well as some of these paintings have been kind of like the paintings that I won't sell. They're kind of like my paintings, so that's kind of like this was a perfect place to put them.
Walk me through some of the paintings.
Yeah, so well, this one here in particular has been kind of like one of this big paintings where it was like one of the first ones that I did that I was actually experimenting with the movement.
So it seems to be like a combination of both your art, your different passions, your art and your dance.
Yes. So I've just been wanting to have my own dance studio. I mean, most of our dancers kind of like, we just kind of went around looking for studios, and you pay hourly, and then it's hard to find the times you need. It's hard to find the space. It's hard to find a consistent kind of space weekly. So it was kind of like one of those dreams that I was like, ooh, I want to have my own dance studio so I can have classes, but also, you know, rent it to other dancers, kind of have this space for people to create art. Well, the action happens. Yeah, so this is the dance floor. We're here in Alston, in a pretty cool neighborhood. It's a lot of college students, a lot of young people, and a lot of people. We put the windows up in the summer, and we play music and we dance and everything. And then you get people showing up afterwards, like, "Hey, I heard salsa dance. Can you guys teach it?" Yeah. So it's a lot of fun to have, kind of to be here in the neighborhood and being able to teach to different people for the first time, and just kind of spread the love for dance and salsa culture, salsa music. But this one is my brother and I did this one as a quick, you know, most of my paintings take like 3 weeks to a month to do. So it's a very slow process, and this is like one of those that I just went, I'm gonna go for it and do it in one day. And it was like, you know, it was my brother and I. We also do a big part of the company is my brother and I started the company with doing a lot of footwork and duets. One of the duets that we did had the Colombian flag, which of course connects to where I'm from. And the song was a Colombian song, so it's kind of like inspired by Colombia and salsa dancing in Colombia. And then I did the painting where I was just gonna go and make it a little bit more abstract than what I was used to. So it's a little bit of course, it's, you know, as an artist, you experiment with everything, and then it's kind of comes out, and you're like, oh wow, that's what I was doing. And I did it in like 2 days.
Great, thanks for showing me around. This
Cool,
was
man.
Amazing.
Thanks a lot.
It's an amazing place.
Yeah, thank you. I can't wait to work with you and collaborate with the art piece that we're working on. So
Yeah, looking forward to seeing what you're
Yes.
brewing in your mind.
of course, you know.
I thought dance was not a real job. It was always something that was a fantasy of mine. And the Latin dance community is what gave me the chance to actually think of it as something that I could pursue. It was people who believed in me before I believed in myself, because I have a lot of fears, doubts, and insecurities. And it was people in the community that pushed me to have this as a profession. There's been so many things and hardships, but a lot of these hardships have like forced us to like think in ways that I don't know if we would have like had the brain capacity to do, you know, like, or been able to focus on these issues that like I think if we were all living our normal lives that like we would be so distracted by everything else going on.
One of the things that I realized that is really important is family. And I felt really grateful that I'm the only person in my family that is here, and I can do things that I want to do.
And it was people in the community that pushed me to have this as a profession. But I still have days where I don't believe in myself, and I have people in my life that push me and push me and push me, and I have students that push me. But it's an everyday journey, like being like, is this real? Is this not real? Is this sustainable? I don't know. I'm just going with the present and taking it day by day. Okay, well, the biggest obstacle is myself. That is the biggest obstacle I have to face daily. Like I said, I have these days and moments where it goes back and forth in my brain of not being good enough, of having these doubts, and then these other moments where I'm like, why would I do anything else? And it's my students, it is the people in the community who I get to see becoming more of themselves through dance, because that is what dance was for me. So the more I get to see that, the less obstacle of my own brain that I face. But it is a daily push to get past those voices in my head that tell me that I'm not good enough. I think the most important thing is like staying in love with the craft, because when we think about career as in terms of like what society tells us a career is, it doesn't always line up with like what art is. And so for myself, I've personally, like in the pandemic, I was like, okay, I was doing dance full time before the pandemic, and I was like, I could try to do it the same way and try to keep this as my main source of income during the pandemic, but I know that like my passion is not there for like the virtual stuff, or my passion is not there fully to dive in. So I have a supplemental income so that the pieces that I do, the projects that I do, can still feel like my full self is in there. So I never want to like jeopardize like my passion and my love for the craft in order to like monetize something. And I know that like if I just keep doing that, like things will fall into place. Like the more connected I am with like myself and my vision and my centeredness, the more the universe will like align and bring me the things that I need in that moment. But if I am not connected to self, then I'm gonna be searching. I'm gonna be searching and picking things that like might not be like what is meant for myself or what is not meant for my community. So I think like breathing, taking a second to like forget about money and forget, and I know it sounds cliche, but forget about money, forget about the career, and just like explore, and keep exploring, and keep that, like that is my career, is like exploration, like continually exploring, continuously trying different things, failing, succeeding, and like being okay with the journey and knowing that the journey is gonna be fucking tough.
I get serious when I went to college. Basically, that's when I decided, you know what, I'm gonna go for this, knowing that it's always a hard kind of decision to make. You know, when they say artists, you know, struggling artists or stuff like that. So it was just kind of like a challenge, but it was, you know, I took it. I wanted to do it, and I went for it, and it became what I do now, partly what I do now. So definitely, you know, that's when I got serious. And then once I started painting afterwards and kind of sold my first painting, then that's when I realized, okay, this can be more serious. So then that became kind of the part of me, you know, getting into working more and developing a style and getting into that style of like what I like to do, what I like to paint, and then go from there.
Probably just how polarized the country got, man. And like, it's been really scary, man, you know, for like everybody. Like, aside from like people losing their jobs and stuff, to like people just getting jumped and shot in the street and everything else going on. It's like, I don't know, it's almost like the end of the world, but you know, I mean, it's gonna go on, but a lot of people didn't make it. A lot of relationships didn't make it. It's not even over yet. Yeah, everybody. I think I got a lot of bartender friends. Like one guy I know, he's got like he's on like his fourth thing, man. In like the last year, he just keeps changing professions. It's crazy. Like he was pulling it down like one of the dopest bartenders in Boston for probably 10, 12 years at the same spot. And then like early, like end of March, like early April last year, boom. Before you even like saw all like the restaurants closed and everything, they dumped like 70% of their staff. And every day it's something crazier, you know?
I think something I'll always remember this year is walking around the Back Bay and the Prudential Mall, and it just being a complete ghost town. And I think it was after also some of the rioting had happened, so things were boarded up, and I literally saw maybe like a handful of people in an area that usually would have like, you walk by hundreds of the people, and it just like really sunk in at how much like the world had changed, and I felt like nothing was really gonna ever be the same after that. And you just really felt like people were avoiding each other, and social distancing was a thing. Everyone was like in masks, and you really just felt like the isolation just really set in. And yeah, I just like, it didn't feel like the same world we were living in. It felt like this alternate reality, like a really bad Black Mirror episode.
Yeah. I don't know. I think what I get from it is, first off, I feel like with the colors that you picked, it reminds me a lot of like the whole lockdown thing, and like everyone's like general depression with like, you know, like everything seemed like a rainy day where like you couldn't really go outside, you know? So like you find different things to stay busy and have fun, like in the house. I like this little guy in the corner here. I didn't notice him till just now. That would be like you recording in your room or whatever. Dope. I really like the like these little like side textures in these couple panels here. It reminds me almost like a weathered like wood grain or something. And then with the highlights and the darks, I feel like from a distance it's almost like a stained glass kind of a thing.
Get out of this. Well, I think it's pretty bold that you have a figure, the most prominent or figure in the foreground, kind of cut off. It's something like a master. I feel like Degas did that type of really unique composition, and I also get like a stained glass feel from it, and it's this like neo-cubism style too. So like George Braque and Pablo Picasso came up with like invented cubism, where it was showing, usually it was sometimes the same subject but from different perspectives. But in a way, zoom is like a type of, it's like you invented kind of the zoom cubism. It's like showing this, it's like capturing a moment of time from all these different perspectives. So it's like the very essence of what cubism is when you think about it. So there's this like parallel between zoom and cubism, which is awesome. And these like cool colors, it's like a gray where it's a really bluish gray, which is like, I feel like that's the feeling I get from technology. It's like just this kind of yeah, like when I see computers, they're just like, they kind of give me this feel, this like a little bit of a lack of warmth, even though you do have different kind of shades of gray in here. I would say there's maybe even 50 shades of gray in here. If I had to guess. I realized I hadn't really done a self-portrait for almost the longest time, and I think this portrait happened to be kind of about my own admission of being silent during a lot of this whole pandemic and all the rioting that happened, the BLM, George Floyd. I just felt almost paralyzed. Like I didn't want to add to the noise I was getting on social media. And I think a lot of it was important because I learned a lot about what was going on about the world through social media. But I was also just like overwhelmed, and I felt like it wasn't my place to just add more noise. But creating this whole piece was very cathartic for me. I just want to like get all my inside, like whatever I was feeling, just out. And like the expression I was trying to capture was just kind of this like covering my mouth, which is like this silencing my own emotions, but it was also covering up of your mouth and nose during this time, during the pandemic, like kind of the fact that we were all covered up and we were just like had to hide our faces for pretty much a year, and the sense of like loneliness we got from just being kind of anonymous as we walked by. We couldn't even really connect with strangers anymore on some level. Like in fact, we were almost taught to just like stay away from any stranger. So obviously the colors are pretty somber, but I intentionally created this like different layering of the text. So the first layer I had was this kind of this black text in charcoal, which is basically this brain dump of like all the information we were getting from the media, social media and mainstream media, and like what we're hearing. So it's literally like I just wrote every single thing, stream of consciousness style, like all the things I was hearing, like informational wise. And obviously it's like spilling over me, so it was just like overwhelming. I just felt like I was flooded with like just information and like new things we had to learn and behaviors we had to change on a daily basis. So it felt like very overwhelming, but I'm also like responding to some of it. Like I have Trump crossed out, and some of the words I crossed out. or emphasized. Like I heard there's a journaling technique where some people write something and then if they want to kind of get rid of it, they just like rip up that paper and it gets up some emotion. I know like, I feel like honestly Trump did a lot of damage to a lot of different communities. Like, and this was pre-pandemic. He just really was a very divisive force for our country and even our world for the longest time. So I don't wish ill on anyone, but I felt like I was hearing about him so much and I didn't like what he was saying, so I really crossed him out. And the fact that he was really trying to demonize China and really scapegoat China, which is, I think, a result of that was a lot of this anti-Asian backlash that might go on for years, and I feel like it's been trending up. So I want to make some commentary on the divisiveness of what leadership can do if they try to keep us divided.
My first thoughts was what's going on is like really, really selfish and really cowardice. And then I always go back to the image of this monk that I learned through like history about like his sacrifice and what he did, and it always reminds me of like how much courage he had in first standing up to like the oppression he was under, and then there was so much like genocide and whatever going on, and like he took that to like a crazy level where it's like meeting violence with non-violence, but with like one of like the most craziest violent like things I've ever seen. But you know, like peaceful at the same time. It's just so crazy to me. And then like the courage that it took him to do that, and the sacrifice that it took him to do that, compared to like, you know, if these people weren't wearing masks, they wouldn't be like attacking people on the street. And then like I see all these like elderly people getting attacked, and like there's so much cowardice behind all this like Asian hate uprising, and I just can't stop thinking about like how strong and powerful and courageous these people are. You know what I'm saying? Like just with the Vietnam alone, like the way like France tried to take them over, and then like America tried to come through and take them, and like without, you know, no Air Force or nothing, like it was just so, just pride and love for yourself and the people around you and your homeland, and you know they fought off the world. And
So, why don't you talk to me? It's our vision board.
Yeah, so we have a beautiful piece of music called Blizzard that we found, and it's about 2 minutes and 40 seconds.
Okay. Wow, this is very tall. Okay, that's okay. Blizzard. Okay, so we have the song.
And we have a storyline we're gonna use for this piece. So when I listened to this song, I imagined people starting together, but then having to be socially distanced and there being loss of touch.
Okay, starting together, lose touch. Okay,
Being-
social distance. Okay.
But then ultimately us coming back together and things returning to normal again.
So the thing to think about is that unless we get contemporary dancers, it's going to be very hard to teach people complex contemporary movements in such a short amount of time.
Okay.
What works with like large groups of people or a little bit larger groups of people is that you're able to create shapes, and then you're less reliant on like the movements being interesting, and you rely more on like the shapes that they create. So for example, instead of having some complex combination where one person's just here doing all this stuff, you can have like, okay, everyone goes down and then comes up, goes down and then comes up, or we're all moving in a circle. Then we reverse the circle, or then we go out and then come in. You know what I mean? So like that thing is like, it's easier to teach people shapes than like complex movements. You know? Like that bright and happiness that we had before. We have have a couple that is together, maybe. William and Liz are not yet having a kiss, so if y'all are comfortable with this. That would be great. And then we have another couple. True.
us by surprise, appear before our eyes, believed all of the lies as people rest and die. A disease on nations hate, all divided by the race. Does it have to be this way? Going to be better days. Separate dark from light, together we all can ride. Continue on and fight. Our world isn't black or white. Strength burdened by the dark of days. Heaven's only an arms away. There's so much more at stake. Walk as one, be guided by faith. The hurt that put us on our knees, we ask for mercy, beg and plead. This is not the way